This segment is all about selling your business in today's economy. And this program is brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals get their books done and published to educate consumers, grow their businesses, and to leave a legacy. Welcome to the program. I'm Mark Imperial. Joining me on this segment is Carl Grimes with Confidential Business Intermediaries. Carl, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Mark. Good to be with you.
Carl, tell us a little bit about your work and let us know specifically who are the types of clients that you specialize in helping.
Yeah, we sell businesses. That's our forte. We've been doing it for almost 30 years, handled about 850 individual business sale transactions. Our clients are, quite frankly, mom and pop, people who have started a business or have bought a business along the way or inherited a business. And they've reached a point in their life where, for whatever reason, it's time for them to exit that business. They want to create a liquidity event. Some of them try to hand them off to their kids. About 80% of the time that fails. So they're looking for third parties to come in and buy their businesses. And when it comes to running a business, nobody's better than mom and pop, the people that started it and operate it daily. But when it comes to selling that business, they don't really have a clue. So we step in, we help them prepare their business. We help them put a value on that business. We help them put the marketing plan together for that business. We take it out to the marketplace and we begin to screen prospective buyers. That's a whole new ball game in today's post-COVID world too. And then we handle the transaction by having a closing attorney close the transaction. And so some of our mom and pop businesses are no longer Main Street. What we've learned is there's a huge group of what we call tweeners. Those are folks who took their Main Street business and they grew it up into what we call the lower middle market mergers and acquisition. But their mindset, their psychology, their emotional state, and oftentimes the operations of their business are just like it was when they were on Main Street. So they require a bit of a different type of arrangement and discussion. The big guys, the ones that are the M&A type things, they're going to attract the investment bankers. But these tweeners need our expertise because we speak their language coming from Main Street, and yet we have a foot in the M&A world too. So Main Street, lower mid-market, the tweeners, that's our market.
Fascinating. Carl, tell us a little bit more about these tweeners. Like, what does that actually look like when you take a Main Street business and, go more into the middle market and M&A world? Does that mean they sold their business and another company came in and invested in it? What does that look like? Can you give us an example?
Yeah, typically, Mark, it means that you've got a very successful Main Street business and they begin to have success and they pile revenue on top of revenue and they start growing that business to the point where it reaches maybe $5, $6, $7, $8 million in revenue. And yet the people that are operating it are still mom and pop, sometimes with a family member doing their books. And so they've grown the business revenue-wise up into the lower middle market, but their operations are still Main Street. So when you get ready to take that business to the market, the preparation for going into the market is much different than it is for Main Street. Because the people are going to look to invest millions of dollars in a business, that buyer looks a whole lot different than the Main Street buyer does. So getting their business prepared to go to the market is sometimes a year to a year and a half, 2 years long, because their books simply are not set up for the accountability that they're going to have in the marketplace, coming under scrutiny of middle market buyers.
That's great insight. And as you mentioned, these mom and pop business owners, they're great at growth, and growing their business. And even if they started with the end in mind, their end in mind probably means growth. And not necessarily selling the business. So as you mentioned, they don't really know where to start there. So when people are considering selling their businesses, what have you found are the most common concerns that they come to you with? Are there any preconceived notions in their minds that they ask you about?
Yeah, a lot of it's trust. Who can I trust with this, my largest financial investment, my largest financial future? Who do I trust with this? And because our profession is so little known, we have to constantly be reaching out to people and educating people about who we are and what we do. One of our big focuses is to develop that trust relationship, is to go to their trusted advisors. Well, who are they? Well, typically it's their CPA, if they have a CPA. So we want to develop relationships with CPAs so that they understand when they turn that client over to a business broker, this is a business broker with integrity. has a process to follow, and will achieve the best outcome for their client. Now, one of the keys we know is that when that CPA is referring them to us, our goal is to sell that business to a third party. CPA stands to lose a client. So what we have tried to do is to take those Main Street businesses, lower mid-market is a little bit different, but take those Main Street businesses and continue the accounting with the existing CPA for the new buyer. It's a little bit iffy there. You've got some disclosure issues you've got to be careful with. But looking for a trusted advisor, somebody they can really trust, is one of the greatest issues that we face. Once we've passed that barrier, built our relationship with them, then it becomes a matter of we're going to take them out of their comfort zone, take that business seller out of their comfort zone really quickly, because they're used to running the business. They're not used to getting it prepared for sale. So they get very uncomfortable. We start digging back in their tax returns, their P&Ls, their inventory, their furniture, fixtures, and equipment, and we start making them quantify that information that excuse me, will be presentable to someone out in the marketplace.
Fascinating. Carl, you made me think of something. Right in the name of your company is confidential, the word confidential. Can you kind of elaborate why that's so important? What areas are confidential and why a business owner would want to keep it that way?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, basic business broker training says that you don't want anybody to know that business is for sale except a qualified buyer, pre-screened buyer. So what we try to do is protect the financial integrity of that business. So we're not floating their financial information, their tax returns, and their P&Ls out to anybody that just says, well, I'm interested in buying a business. Well, everybody's interested in that. Do you have the motivation, the real motivation, and do you have the means, the money to do that? So screening people is a big part of what we do. And then making sure that the information there is translatable to them. And it works very well for us to do that. Confidential, though, means that we must always have a non-disclosure agreement. And I'll be honest with you, Mark, one of the issues I see in the marketplace today, so many people coming out of COVID have gotten away from face-to-face meetings. And I believe that that is a really critical thing to develop the relationship that you need for the person that's buying to understand the concerns that the seller has about their private, confidential information getting out into the marketplace. Because if it does, the company that's selling could lose their employees, because if they hear the business is for sale, they're liable to leave. If you tried to replace an employee in post-COVID, it's really hard to do. And then they're also concerned about their bankers, their vendors, their customers finding out their business is for sale. So protecting the confidentiality is really and truly protecting the integrity of that business and the very saleability of that business. We have techniques to do that.
Makes sense. Carl, what inspired you to get into this field and help business owners with their transitions and selling their businesses? How did you get started?
Well, that's a longer story than we have time for today. But I think basically, Mark, you could sum it up with one thing. I love to help people. And I found that there was a real gap in this profession from people who knew how to get a business sold, but were also looking out for the interest of their client and ultimately the buyer also. So I owned a title company. In that title company, I handled some closings for a business broker. When I saw the lack of ethics and integrity of that business broker, and then I saw the amount of the commission check I wrote for that business broker at the closing, I told my wife, I said, that's a profession I want to learn more about, because I believe if we do it with integrity and ethics, that we can help a lot of people and we can make a lot of money with it. And that's true about this business.
Terrific. Carl, before I ask you my last question, is there anything regarding selling a business that I didn't think to ask you that you feel is important to share with the audience that's considering selling their businesses today in today's economy?
Yeah, Mark, and that is using rules of thumb to value a business. That is the worst mistake that most business owners make. You and I are human beings. We breathe air, we walk, we're bipedal, but we sure don't look the same, and we're not the same. Every business is that way. Yes, it's a business, but you can't use a rule of thumb to determine the value of a business. To really determine the value of business, you got to get down in the guts of the business to understand the history and look for the projection of the future. Most business owners do not understand how important it is to prepare that business for sale by getting it ready early enough to add value to it when it gets ready to go to the market.
Sage advice. Carl, for listeners that would love to get a hold of you, how can they find you, connect with you, and learn more?
Probably the best way, Mark, is through our website, which is pretty simple, cbiteam.com. That's short for Confidential Business Intermediaries, cbiteam.com. And that's the best way to reach me. But they can also call our corporate office, which is 877-582-5200. And then for email, use confidential@cbiteam.com. And we always respond to the calls. Be glad to talk with them.
This has been terrific. I really appreciate you taking the time to share with my audience today, and I wish you continued success for you and for all of your clients.
My pleasure and my privilege. Thank you, Mark.
That was Carl Grimes with Confidential Business Intermediaries, and this segment's been brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place with busy professionals get their books published to educate consumers, grow their businesses, and to leave a legacy. That's all for now. I'm Mark Imperial, and thanks for joining me.